Why get grilled by the reporters when you can stand next to Nicki Minaj? Let the viral twerking joke do the work and drop your message directly onto the homepage of 200 million followers without a single journalist there to challenge the narrative. A few weeks ago, Donald Trump stood up at the podium for the White House Correspondents' Dinner and he cracked a joke that not only broke the ice that night, but also instantly set the internet on fire. In a room full of journalists, he brought up that chaotic security emergency from 3 months back. And he told everyone that when the security guards started screaming, get down, he said Nicki Minaj immediately started twerking. And and I'm literally quoting him here. He said, "She's the only one in the room who actually understood what get down meant."
But after hearing the gunshots, many people yelled, get down, which caused Nicki Minaj to start twerking. Do you believe it? Get down.
The room goes crazy. But even crazier is the internet. Within minutes, the clip is absolutely everywhere. And of course, a few days later, Nicki Minaj entered the scene and joined the performance. She posted a picture of a Chucky doll in a pink wig with the caption, "How I'll be looking at the president next time I see him." And at that very moment, the entire internet completely loses its mind. We spent the next 2 weeks tearing each other apart in the comment section, making TikToks and fighting on Reddit over whether twerking punchline was either funny or offensive or a political betrayal. But let us take a step back from the drama for just a second. Let us look at what that night was actually supposed to be about. So, 3 months before that dinner, the original venue faced a catastrophic violent breach that shut the entire event down. So, people in formal gowns and tuxedos were hiding under tables while glass was shattering everywhere. Even a federal officer was seriously injured in the line of duty that night. So, when they finally gathered for this makeup dinner, it was meant to be a dead, serious, heavy hitting reckoning in political hostility in the US. It was supposed to demand a real answer for massive security failures. It was supposed to debate a highly controversial $400 million taxpayer bill to build a security White House ballroom. So this wouldn't happen again. We desperately needed a real conversation about public safety and accountability. Instead, Donald Trump, the president of US, drops a punchline about dropping it low for a life or death command. And just like that, the heavy reality of domestic instability, broken security protocols, and hundreds of millions of your tax dollars completely vanished from the public's radar. Then, even worse, when you open your social media feed and see Nicki Minaj flashing a $1 million gold card immigration visa while the rest of you are out here drowning in rent and grocery bills. You realize they are playing a character.
Hello, guys. I'm with my favorite president, the best president of all time.
And I'm with the queen of rap.
And it is a performance, a loud one that is designed to get a raw reaction out of you. Do you realize that while you're spending your valuable time, your energy, and your mental health fighting strangers in the comments, the real political machinery moves forward completely unnoticed? Complex legislation, corporate tax cuts, and massive policy shifts slip through without a word. All because our collective attention span was entirely hijacked by the performance, by the spectacles. So, if you are joining me right now feeling a profound sense of exhaustion over this ongoing celebrity political circus, your frustration is entirely valid. But today, we're not taking that bait because this isn't just a gossip. I don't do gossip. This is a masterclass in how your attention, our attention, is being systematically weaponized by a highly sophisticated network of political buzzer. And today we are pulling back the curtain on the Donald Trump Nicki Minaj alliance. We are not going to argue about whether she's right or she's wrong. Instead, we're looking at the hard 2026 voter data, the hidden elite transaction, and the political science theories that prove exactly how the friction itself is the product. Most importantly, most importantly, we're going to talk about how you can defend your mind from this chaos. Let's get started. So, how do we make sense all of this? If we look at the mainstream media coverage, we clearly see the framing. They contextualize Nicki Minaj's sudden MAGA conversion as the shocking political plot twist. The headlines are screaming, "Wow, look at her. The icon completely changed. Nicki Minaj MAGAification."
Nicki Minaj is now full on MAGA. This is the story about how one of the most influential rappers of the 21st century moved from pop culture dominance and queer adoration into grievance politics, internet antagonism, and cultural isolation. This is the MAGAification of Nicki Minaj.
But let us look at it from a different angle. In May 2026, Time magazine dived into Minaj's profile. The author exposes a truth, another reality that the Barbs, her core fan base, have spent years trying to ignore, which is Nicki Minaj did not suddenly change her mind. She has always leaned conservative. The author mentioned that she already hinted her political view on a 2012 track, which is more than a decade ago.
I'm a Republican voting for Mitt Romney. You lazy bitches is fucking up the economy.
She literally rapped about being a Republican voting for Mitt Romney because others were messing up with the economy. So, what is changing in her? It was never about philosophical conversion, it was her personal grievances. Nikki openly admitted that she completely abandoned and burned by the traditional democratic establishment. She felt deeply condescended to by Barack Obama's campaign speeches. She claimed she was completely ignored by California Governor Gavin Newsom when her house was being targeted by terrifying swatting hoaxes. She felt alienated by the left after her 2021 vaccine comments. That all is what she said to the Time magazine author. Let's say all of those statements are what is actually happening. What do you expect Nicki Minaj will do? When you are that wealthy, when you are that powerful, you have a lot of influence. You don't just sit there and let your influence dry up. If one room locks you out, you don't back to get back in. You just have to find a different room with even a bigger door and you sign new deal. This is where we bring in our first major tool from political science, the elite theory. Now it sounds like I am making up a conspiracy theory by bringing this up, but decades ago, the famous sociologist C. Wright Mills wrote a landmark book, The Power Elite. Mills proved that at the highest levels of society, the billionaires, the politicians, the media stars do not actually live in separate worlds. They function as an interconnected club that strikes quiet institutional deals to protect their own status. So when Nikki could not get Gavin Newsom on the phone, she realized she did not need the traditional system anymore. She built the direct bridge to the top of the alternative elite structure, Donald Trump. It was a direct, it was elite to elite transaction. Trump knew exactly what he was doing when he brought her out at the US Treasury event or when he cracked that joke at the Waldorf Astoria. It is not a secret that his entire political brand relies on being an anti establishment wrecking ball. So, by aligning with Nicki Minaj, he is not just getting a headline, he is pulling off a massive cultural heist. He's bypassing the mainstream media filters and buying instant raw cultural currency with demographics that traditional Republicans have never been able to touch: the young black women and Gen Z. Normally, if Donald Trump wants to speak to young black women or Gen Z, he must go through traditional media channels. He went to a live stream with Gen Z popular influencers and then he held a roundtable with African American leaders. Let's look at the footage from his panel at the National Association of Black Journalists. He sits down on the stage, and before he can even deliver his talking points, he gets hit by a wall of aggressive statements. Check this out.
Mr. President, we so appreciate you giving us an hour of your time. I want to start by addressing the elephant in the room, sir. A lot of people did not think it was appropriate for you to be here today. You have pushed false claims about some of your rivals, from Nikki Haley to former President Barack Obama, saying that they were not born in the United States, which is not true. You have told 4 congresswomen of color who were American citizens to go back to where they came from. You have used words like animal and rabid to describe black district attorneys. You've attacked black journalists, calling them a loser, saying the questions that they ask are, quote, stupid and racist. You've had dinner with a white supremacist at your Mar-a-Lago resort. So my question, sir, now that you are asking black supporters to vote for you, why should black voters trust you after you have used language like that?
Trump's team knows that traditional ways are a tactical dead end for them with the youth demographic. They realize it is much easier to just bypass the press entirely. Why get grilled by the reporters when you can stand next to Nicki Minaj? Let the viral twerking joke do the work and drop your message directly onto the homepage of 200 million followers without a single journalist there to challenge the narrative. Trump did not bring Nicki Minaj in because of her worldview. He brought her in for her epistemic power. In political science studies, the scholars call this as the celebrity epistemic power. A pop icon has the unique power to dictate what the public thinks is important. She handed him the direct access to her empire to normalize the MAGA brand. In return, Trump handed her a seat at the table of power, $1 million gold card immigration visa, and institutional legitimacy. So, if this is just a cold, direct elite to elite transaction, how does it actually filter down to your screen in your hand? How does a multimillionaire rapper standing next to a billionaire turn into you and your friends arguing in the group chat? I'll bring you to the concept of the agency problem, the principal agent problem. Now, I want you to imagine a contract, a corporate contract. Trump and MAGA are the principal, the bosses, those with the power who hire someone to do a mission, to do a job. On the other hand, we have Nicki Minaj, the agent, the person hired to do act on their behalf, on the principal's behalf. But here is the twist. In any contract, both sides, the principal and the agent, are always looking out for number one, motivated by pure selfishness. Both sides will always put their own self interest first. This creates a game of who is using whom. Let me walk you through. See, Donald Trump did not invite Nicki Minaj to the White House because he's a big fan of her music. Well, could be, but I doubt it. He hired her to play a very specific, highly strategic role. He hired her to be a mega buzzer. In this modern digital age, a buzzer in the political context is a high profile person used by campaigns to manufacture intense noise, pump out propaganda, and spark uncontrollable emotional chaos. A buzzer's job is never to inform you. Their only job is to trigger your most raw emotions so your brain stops thinking logically. While the internet is obsessing over pink hair, Chucky dolls, and twerking jokes, Donald Trump is quietly sliding a complex legislation, corporate tax cuts, and massive policy shifts right past the US citizen, barely with any friction. In July 2026, Congress quietly finalized a massive piece of economic legislation, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, OBBBA. While its groundwork was laid a year prior, 2025, but 2026 was the moment the fiscal really hit, marking the first full year this corporate tax cut took effect and the budget absorbed the blow. Even a senator from Republican opposes this.
Passed by a Republican Congress. Worse yet, the bill transfers the taxing authority from the legislature to the executive branch, an unconstitutional delegation of power. The Constitution clearly states.
By the way, I put the link on the description box if you want to know more in details why he opposed the bill and call it as the big not so beautiful bill. Okay, we go back to our main discussion. So, apart from these OBBBA bills, Trump also get Nicki Minaj backing for his signature economic bills, the Trump Accounts pilot program. Nicki literally stood on a stage and pledged up to 300,000 US dollar on her own money to fund these accounts for her fans' kids. For Trump, that is an unbelievable win. He gets a massive pop star validating his economic policy on a global stage for free. On the other hand, Nicki Minaj, the agent, she gets the Trump Gold Card visa. She gets the protection. She gets to rebrand all her music industry feuds, her losses against rivals, her canceled store dates, her internet dramas, not as personal failures, but as a political persecution. Do you see now? Do you see the genius of this from her perspective? If people stop buying her music, she doesn't have to admit her career is changing. She can just say the liberal media is trying to cancel me because I love Trump. But the heartbreaking part is the situation creates a massive moral hazard because she is protected now by the MAGA political machine. She can completely ignore the frustration of her fans. She can go on social media, look at the Reddit threads mocking her, and loudly declare that she rejects her cancelled status. She feels untouchable because she has switched her reliance from the public to a political elite structure. At this point, one question emerged in my mind. Does the mega buzzer strategy actually work? Because this is a strategy that triggers psychological friction social media frenzy, I am super curious whether those things are reflected in the actual voting data. In fact, the data says no. According to the latest Yale Youth poll, the 2026 election cycle poll, the Gen Z and the young millennials are completely overwhelmingly rejecting the MAGA brand. A staggering 68% to 72% of voters under the age of 30 explicitly disapprove of Donald Trump. To make matters worse, his net approval rating among young voters recently hit an all-time low of minus 76. Seems like there is a massive disconnection between the super loud noise in the online world and the reality of the US public. So, if young people are not actually buying the narrative, why then is the Trump campaign leaning so heavily into this mega buzzer strategy? Because of a voter suppression via exhaustion, or in political science, often analyzed as the voter fatigue. So in May 2026, the London School of Economics USAPP published an extensive analysis that breaks down how younger generations in the US interact with ballot box. The research highlights the youth turnout data compiled by Circle, and the turnout among young black women fell by 7 points and the young black men by 6 points. These young voters, economically anxious and politically skeptical, did not suddenly switch sides to become radical nationalists, but they just stayed home. In this situation, being abstain is just as powerful as raw enthusiasm. Imagine if you are a political strategist advising for Trump, for example. You don't need to spend millions of dollars convincing a young black woman to vote Republican. That's too hard. Instead, you use a mega buzzer to trash the alternative, creative, massive cultural chaos and breed deep systematic cynicism. If that young voters feels betrayed, feels frustrated, and totally overwhelmed by the drama, they will make a choice by themselves, which is they will stay at home. This is a structural win for the Republican. Now let's see what data says about this Nicki Minaj mega buzzer thing. A data investigation report by the Cyber Intelligence Analytics from Siabra found that 33% of the profiles driving the conversation, cheering her on, and sparking arguments were actually fake bot accounts. So one third of the friction you see in your timeline is entirely manufactured by digital buzzers, by the robots. It is a total mirage. It is a psychological illusions designed to make you feel like the entire culture is shifting beneath your feet, while the actual youth approval for this policy is practically non existent. This brings us to the agenda-setting theory. So, this theory reminds us that the media and the politicians don't actually care if you love them or if you hate them. They only care about one thing, that they can control what you are thinking about. So, while we are fighting over the performance, over the drama, the political machinery wins. So, how do we protect ourselves? How do we shield our mind from this chaotic political drama designed to exhaust us into submission? The very first thing we must do when we see a shocking celebrity political headline is to stop and ask, what are they trying to hide right now? Understand that the anger we feel is the intended product. The moment we type an angry reply or share a video out of frustration, we are clocking into their factory and working for the campaign for free. Don't give them your labor. And then, second, we have to stop looking to multi-billionaire elites for moral or civic leadership, please. Nicki Minaj, I believe, is an incredibly talented musician. Well, factually. But she operates in a completely different economic reality than we do. She has $1 million gold card visa. Meanwhile, we have rent to pay. When we can separate our love for an artist's music from our own political beliefs, their ability to manipulate our voting behaviors drops to zero. And then third, you have to remember that 33% statistic. So one out of every three accounts screaming at you in the comment section is not even a real person. It is a bot designed to elevate your blood pressure for real. If you notice a comment section or a thread in a platform that is super toxic, walk away from it. Protect your peace. And the last one is redirect our precious bandwidth. If they want us talking about celebrity drama, force yourself to look at the real policy, to look at the real economic data, to look at the tax legislation that actually impacts our paychecks. The politicians profit from our distraction. The only way to win is to refuse to be distracted. Nicki Minaj gets her elite status and shield for her brand. Trump gets millions of dollars in free cultural exposure and weapon to fragment his opposition. And you get the bill, you get the anxiety, you get the tribalism, you get the psychological exhaustion. So the next time a celebrity buzzer goes off on your phone, don't take the bait. Turn off that noise, look at the real math, and keep your focus exactly where it belongs, on your own community, your loved ones, your own pocketbooks, and your own material reality. So, thank you very much for listening to my deep dive. If this breakdown helped you see through this chaos, please hit that subscribe button, leave a comment, and share this episode with someone who is tired of being manipulated by the spectacle. Please protect your mind, please, and keep your eyes wide open. And as always, Sapere Aude, dare to know. Ciao!